I'm sorry, the March 11th minutes. If you've reviewed them, have a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Dave, is there anybody from the public?
No attendees right now, Ryan.
So sad. All right. Great. Well, I know that I had sent out some information this afternoon in regards to Air Wireless, and do we have the guests from Air Wireless here, Dave?
No, we don't, Ryan. And I'm thinking now that I don't know that I think we sent the agenda, but I didn't forward the panelist invite to them. So I'll get on my email and try to do that.
Okay. Hi, Ann. While you do that, Dave, why don't we move through the other agenda items? That sound good?
Yep.
Okay. One of the items I wanted to chat about was the possibility of trying to craft a role within the town to help to coordinate the economic development activities. There is a possibility, well, there's not a possibility, there is pretty much a guarantee that the town of Madison will receive some economic rescue funds. I don't know, Bruce, what is the right terminology for that?
I am not really sure, but it's potentially a big pile of money. It's up close to 2 million right now, I think.
Oh. So one of the possibilities would be to craft a proposal from the Economic Development Commission to fund a role or a short-term role or a role with a period of time assigned to it to help to not only focus on the economic development opportunities in town and to ensure that they're communicated to those that might be interested, but also to focus on the economic sustainability kind of components of ensuring that as we make decisions as a town, we're doing it with kind of a understanding of what the future impact of decisions could be, and it could be decisions on either side of the revenue and expenditure formula. And I did, Dave brought this up a while ago. As some of you might remember, we've talked to Guilford. I say talked to, I've sent them many emails and received 1 or 2 back. That we would be interested in perhaps a regional, meaning Guilford-Madison position that would facilitate economic development activities between the towns. They lost their coordinator, or not lost, he retired, Brian retired sometime in 2020, I believe, right, Dave? Or maybe early 2020.
Just under a year ago, just under a year ago.
And so I think they're trying to figure out what they want to do with that role. So we reached out with interest there. I think there's a renewed interest now in trying to potentially craft a role that helps us meet some of the goals that we have, both that we've had for a long time, as well as some of the future goals that I think and future challenges that might lie ahead, post the pandemic. I actually reached out to Laura Brown, who's at, Dave, I can't remember what office she's at. She's
with Yukon Extension.
Yukon Extension. But she's economic development is her function.
Correct.
And reached out to her regarding a fellowship. And I've seen it elsewhere where certain states and certain universities especially essentially have an economic development fellowship program that places usually a postgraduate student in a role with a municipality or city for a period of time. It would be great if we could craft something that said, this would be a role that maybe last a year or 2 years that would focus on not only helping to cultivate and promote economic development in town, but could also help to formalize some of our some of our goals and some of our long range planning, which I think we haven't done a lot of over the years. So I guess this is kind of just a first step in that conversation, although I think, as Bruce alluded to, there will be money sometime, probably sooner rather than later. And I can imagine there will be other departments and organizations vying for some of that funding. And so I ideally we craft a good kind of argument as to why a small portion of those funds should be invested in our long-term viability. The rescue funds are there to help to soften the impact of the pandemic, and certainly our economy is one of those things that have been impacted and could have future impacts. So I think that there's a reasonable expectation that an economic development kind of cause should be taken up as part of those funds. That's of course my own biased opinion. So I don't know, Dave, is there anything you want to add to that? I'm going to ask if there are members of the commission that want to help.
Yeah, let me add something, and then everybody can jump in. So I brought this idea up to Ryan and also to Peggy, because admittedly, am stretched pretty thin. And during, COVID, it became plainly obvious to me that the town of Madison doesn't have basically the capacity, the staff capacity to provide the economic development assistance that businesses may need in times like this. Certainly I think, we leaned on the chamber pretty heavily and others to kind of help communicate things. And so I saw potentially this American Rescue Fund as an opportunity to start correcting our deficiencies in that arena. And I also kind of coupled with some conversations we were having internally about, infrastructure projects and, not to diminish people's needs, but kind of like the shiny new thing mentality. I felt like we could very easily spend $2 million on things and then might not have a lot to show for it in the future. And so that's a little bit of background. And also we've had ongoing lengthy discussions about issues where a downtown district authority or something similar to that might be beneficial. So issues such as, cleaning up the snow on the sidewalks downtown, or, trash removal, some kind of coordinated trash removal, facade improvements, obviously septic handling, shared septic, shared wastewater. And so I envision that if we were able to get someone like Ryan suggested, a fellow or partner with UConn or Advanced CT, to have someone help us build capacity in this regard. And that could also be working with the downtown business owners to form some kind of association of their own, where they might be able to, we'd be able to be a facilitator to help organize them so that they might be able to work more effectively together. So it's really the basic concept, and kind of in the bigger picture, I kind of feel like the state should be thinking in the same direction and maybe helping other towns think about utilizing the funding in this way. And then my last statement is, Ryan mentioned that the town of Guilford had their economic development coordinator retire and they haven't replaced him. The town of Brantford had really the same thing happen probably a year prior. And so I do think there's an opportunity for some collaboration with other towns as well that we could possibly explore. So it's just a little bit more background. So yeah, when I read the agenda item, it almost sounds like, Ryan's trying to fire me. So I wanted to make it clear that, I'm definitely part of this discussion and part of the driver of the discussion.
Well, we're unsure, Dave.
Yeah, it's still probably going to happen. It's just matter of what.
This is a supplement to our existing structure, not a replacement. So
right. So Dave, this person would be under your direction, or how would that?
Well, that's a good question. I envision myself working closely with this person, but I think it would be up to EDC to make recommendations and ultimately the Board of Selectmen to decide would this position be better served under the Board of Selectmen and the first Selectman, or under me. That would be
but there would be my concern. There would be someone. So if we have a fellow, we're talking about a grad student who might not have had a lot of time in municipal function, and would there be significant direction, guidance, oversight, because that institutional knowledge and understanding how it's not a big bureaucracy, but a bureaucracy, how it works, so that that person can be effective in the role, I guess would be my question.
Yeah.
And then what percentage of their time would be devoted to this?
I think, Mark, I think these are some of the details. I think, we're at this stage, we've really just kind of brainstormed out that this, could be a possibility. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it depends on how it's structured, if it's a university kind of sanctioned position and what oversight when they have. So those are some of the things that, I think if the commission would like to kind of pursue at least kind of going the next step and kind of formulating what a solution might look like, I think those are the things that, that we would at least start to put some structure or some ideas around.
Okay.
I put you down as a volunteer. Mark would like to.
So are there any guardrails with these funds coming our way? I mean, based on the description, it sounds like each department from the town and each commission is probably going to put forward their respective proposals, right? But are there any guardrails, any direction with the funds, or is it just?
And where does it go? Where do the funds go?
Right.
Directly.
No, it's going into my personal banking account.
Yeah. Bruce has it right now.
So there's a couple of things. One, the school district has its own version of this happening. So these will not be funds that are earmarked for the school district. They will be getting their own, and they'll be, they'll deal with that. I do believe there are going to be guardrails that come with it. They are yet to be disclosed. So there's certainly a large economic rescue component to it, and probably dovetails in, at least for us, with some infrastructure components as well. But I think this is a stay tuned, right? There'll be more coming out, and I see that Peggy's recently sent an email off saying, "Hey, I want to talk at your next meeting more about this topic."
Yeah. No, I think that's helpful. I mean, for me, kind of the first question that pops in my mind is this, is this more aimed at recovery measures or kind of forward-looking, investment mentality, right?
Yeah.
I think there's more to come.
Yeah.
I think my concern sort of echoes on Mark is an intern our best bang for our buck. That would be my major concern. Would be, wouldn't it perhaps, are there other, does it make more sense to use this opportunity to push forth something shared with Guilford that's a more long-term, redesign of the system of where Dave has been wearing too many hats, or struggling, because of the multiple jobs he has.
I don't know that Dave is struggling, but
No, I mean,
let Dave answer
not
that.
struggle's the wrong term. I mean that in the most positive way possible. Just that he, in the process of this, recognized that he has an awful large task, and could we centralize things to make it better? So my question is, why would we, in 2 years? It just seems to me maybe it makes more sense to make a sort of more long-term investment in somebody who has more experience. And I don't know what that looks like, but I'm just wondering why the internship was the first idea thrown out as opposed to something a little bit.
No, I don't think it was it definitely wasn't it may have come across that way, Jonathan,
Okay.
but I think, it goes back to last year, or even before when we initially threw things out to Guilford, that we were interested in kind of a shared role.
Yeah.
So no, certainly just kind of brainstorming what all of the different possibilities could look like. And, knowing that some of them will not even be available to us when it comes time to, finally figure out if it's something that's even realistic. So, well, it sounds good. And so, yeah, I do see Peggy's note to our group, Bruce, that you just alluded to. So why don't we do this? If there are people, if there are members of the commission that are interested in kind of at least starting to brainstorm on this activity, maybe you can just let me know after the meeting. And as long as we meet any kind of meeting requirements. We'll try and get a couple small conversations happening just to have some initial ideas perhaps down, so that when Peggy attends in May, perhaps we can have a more kind of fruitful discussion around the possibilities. I do think it's extremely relevant. I think that our ask should be reasonable, given the other priorities, of course, that are in town. But I think not to have economic development be a part of an economic recovery kind of stimulus payment probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I think it's probably pretty realistic that we would want to pursue this.
And
And I would just add, Ryan, that this doesn't have to be a completely new thought, right? So if you were to go back and look at the CIP plan and identify some things that are in some of the out years that you see a really direct economic benefit to, we could target those for acceleration with these monies. So there's not going to be a requirement. This is a brand new project, and
Right.
probably the more shovel ready, right? The more shovel ready the project is, the more attractive it's going to be.
That makes sense.
So, Ryan, I just wanted to mention, when I did talk to, just exchange quick emails with Courtney Hendrickson and Sadie Concord from Advanced CT, they said they'd enjoy being part of any conversations we have about it. So maybe, whether it's a subcommittee type of group or the full committee, we could invite them to join us too in brainstorming this idea a little bit further.
That's a good idea. Okay. Yeah, so anybody who's interested, I don't think it's going to be a big lift, but maybe a couple of conversations between now and May. Shoot me a note, and especially if you're interested in having conversations with the Advanced CT, or even Rex, or even the Greater New Haven Chamber. I know they have an economic development person at this point as well. So it might be good to have some quick conversations to figure out what a structure might look like. Great.
That's good.
Did you have something, Ann?
No, I just said that sounds good.
All right. Sounds good. Great.
Sounds
So I see, Dave, you were able to get the link out.
Yeah, Keith is on right now. He's got his hand raised. He's looks
Oh,
like ready to
okay, great. Yep.
go.
We're going to call on Keith next. Excellent.
Okay.
Keith, welcome to Madison.
Thank you. I wish I were there.
Located?
Pardon me?
Where are you located?
Today I am in Falls Church, Virginia.
Oh, I lived in Falls Church, Virginia for the first 3.5 years of my life.
Were your parents diplomats or military?
My parents were going to grad school.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming. I did share out the information, Keith, that you had provided earlier in the week. But I'd love to give you the floor for 10 minutes to kind of share with us what you're working on and how Madison might benefit.
Okay. Thanks very much, and thanks for having me on. I am just lost my mom, so if you see hesitation in between speeches, please excuse me. My name is Keith Walker, and I am the founder and CEO of Air Wireless, a wireless broadband service provider. We like to say that we do what the other companies don't do, and we deliver the bandwidth that our customers typically pay for. Now, we took a look at Madison. Through Bruce, I met Bruce and came up to Madison one Sunday afternoon, drove around, and then we met him in the town center. And we went over to what's it called? The park there, the baseball park, and the Surfside. And what I'm gonna do here in a minute, I'm gonna go very quickly. What I'm going to do here in a minute is bring up the KMZ file on Madison that we created. But first, what I would like to do is just briefly, in layman's term, describe the technology that we're using. You know, Wi-Fi typically has a range of 100 to 300 feet. The technology that we are using has a range of 4 miles. Unlike the Wi-Fi that you use at home, the Wi-Fi that we use, it allows you to what we call hop, meaning move from point A to point B, or to any point where one of our pieces of equipment is installed. The traditional Wi-Fi you use is unable to do that because of the inherent technology, for lack of a better word. So what this means is that we can deploy a network anywhere in Madison and create somewhat of a canopy, creates a canopy over the area to be served. And because of that, the way we're looking at deploying this and just coming in and hearing you speaking about economic development, which was one of the things Bruce hit me over the head with when the pandemic set in. What we're looking to do is to discuss with the city of Madison deploying a network in the town center area, stretching all the way back up to the church on the left-hand side if you're heading downtown, and extending more over by the hotel, the Surfside, and the park, and on Hammonasset Beach. Because from what I understand, I've never gone to Hammonasset Beach during the summer, or if I did, I might have forgotten, because the first place I lived when I came from Barbados from high school was in Norwalk, Connecticut. So what we're looking to do with the technology, if you think of it, we're looking to deploy Wi-Fi with a canopy covering the town. And with that, individuals that come into the city town center would be able to have Wi-Fi for free if you decide to give it to them for free. But if they're over on Hammonasset Beach where there would be a network, they would pay. And the other thing that would happen there is at least they'll be able to use their cell phones and get good signal. That's one of the other benefits of this. But from an economic development basis, what we're able to do, and Kevin was going to come on, he's actually listening through my headset, is he's going to be back in the office. What we would be able to do, if you can think of all of the restaurants downtown or anywhere where the network would be located, all of the other businesses that would be there. There's a lot of history in your town, and when visitors come, whether it's those going to Hammonasset Beach or coming in town or coming to dinner, there's a whole myriad of things that such a network would be able to develop. And one of them would be to allow the restaurants, to allow individuals to book, make reservations through the portal that the city will have. And Kevin can speak more about that. But here is the bottom line. When you hear, this Wi-Fi network, well, how much is it going to cost? How is it going to function? Some people become a little nervous. There's no need to be, because these networks that we deploy are a fraction of the cost if someone else were to try to put in a Wi-Fi network for you. And the reason for that, if you've looked over the notes, is because our equipment does not need, all of the devices or the nodes in the network would not need to have internet access as a typical access point would need. But they all would need power. And in those places where we're unable to get AC power, we can use solar panels. And because of the low power consumption of the equipment, you're talking a solar panel about the size of about an 8.5 by 11, okay? Or about the size of a large binder. And that's because the power is low. But what would happen is if there are any individuals in the town, in the city of Madison, that have any issues with broadband, as we've seen from some cities, those individuals, it's not going like some other towns would have to do, go near the school and park and hope that you can connect to the Wi-Fi network. You would be able to go anywhere, and depending on where you live, perhaps stay inside and still access the Wi-Fi network. What I want to do real quick, and if you would allow me to share my screen for a minute, I would like to share something with you. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So what I've done here, Okay. This is pretty much the downtown area that we're covering. And let me explain to you what you're looking at. Those are not hula hoops. Those are actually the devices that you see, those little green teardrops. Those represent the Wi-Fi nodes. The green represents the Wi-Fi coverage area. And what you would notice is that they're all interlocking, and that provides a self-healing network. The red devices, however, the red circles represent the broadband coverage area. And those devices, if you look closely at the red circles, they're interlocking. But the area that we were targeting is this white outline for downtown. And I'm gonna go out a little more. So each one of these yellow pins represents what we refer to as transport. So meaning I'm getting my bandwidth from somewhere, and those yellow lines represent moving the bandwidth anywhere in the city that we need to deliver services. I'm gonna go out a little more and show you again. So here, and excuse the background noise, I have someone installing something for me here. When we go over to the Madison Beach Hotel, you'll notice a pin. And believe it or not, Bruce did take me to these places so we could take a look. This is the Surfside Club. And what we would be talking about here, okay, this big stadium or park, you would have Wi-Fi access anywhere on the park. And what we've done, we've shot from Surfside and we went down a little further. We can go all the way down here and go further if we need to. I think we're approaching the park, I mean the beach. So I want to go
Are
up.
you
So
trying to get to Hammonasset? It's the other way.
I thought so too, yeah. But basically from here, from this area, that's the beach right there, okay? We can provide coverage all along this area. However, based on little tidbits that I just heard and what Bruce had mentioned to me before, what we would look to do is to focus on this, on the town center initially, before we would build out to these other areas. But in building out to these areas, your city would become more connected, better connected, and I dare say, given the financial setback suffered by many of the cities, would also provide a revenue stream for the city and a convenience, because the millennials and the Generation Xers, if they know they can go sit at the beach while having good connectivity, they would take it. Let me stop there for a minute and see if you have any questions.
Keith, I had one question. I think early on you mentioned a range of 4 miles.
Yes.
Each of those green circles, does that represent the area that would be served by each yellow pin?
Yes and no. We curtailed them. So if I were to go down each one of those yellow pins, we did it this way because what we would need to do is reduce. If we open this up to the full 4 miles, it would be over here somewhere, and that would be a waste. So instead of wasting power and wasting access, we keep it to a few hundred feet offshore. So, and I'm glad you bring this up. If you're still seeing my screen, when you look at this community in here, not knowing what level of service they have, if we wanted to, it would be as simple as dropping another pin or another device where my hand is, and then put in a device on the home or put in a Wi-Fi device that would allow the individuals in that targeted area to now have service.
Any other questions for Keith? On this?
Keith, this is interesting, and thanks for joining us tonight. One question I would have is, have you replicated something like this for another town or city already?
Yes, we have. As I'm speaking to you, I'm sitting here in Falls Church, but we are currently getting ready to deploy a network in Stafford County, where 10% of the population is unserved. We are currently addressing 3 communities, and those basically uncover a lot of the challenges that we didn't expect, but we're there. So that's in Stafford County. We're also working with a rural electrical co-op down in North Carolina, Roanoke Rural Electrical Co-op, where we're going to be deploying in one town, something similar to what we're proposing here. And the town council loved it. And we are going to be re-engaging them to start deploying that network. In addition to this, in Warrenton, Virginia, we currently have a couple of customers that are using our services, where one is a 300-acre farm, a 150-acre farm, and a community of about 91 homes that today are unserved. They're ready to shoot us because we are not moving fast enough because, of course, with the town, we have to get permits for easements because, again, the electrical co-ops don't want us to put the equipment on their poles. So we came up with an ingenious idea to create our own poles with a solar panel, battery backup, and mounting the equipment on it. And that's moving along well. In addition to this, we're getting ready to deploy somewhat of a similar network for the Sioux Nation out in South Dakota and Nevada. And our counterpart up in Calgary has deployed some fabulous networks. And this is where both TELUS and Rogers could not serve the subscribers. In the case of what we're doing in Warrenton, unfortunately, the carriers told the cities that it is not financially feasible to deploy broadband for the residents. But in order to get the 5G permits that they wanted, they told I would say the ill-informed congressmen and senators that by giving them these permits, they're going to get broadband out to all the rural areas. And I had to say to them, stop. If it was not financially feasible to deploy a 4G network, so at least you can have mobile broadband in these areas, and you're going to move to 5G where the range is shorter, the cell sites are almost 3 to 4 times as much, how is that going to become financially feasible? So we'd be happy to have you come down. The weather is warmer now. If you want to see any of these networks in place. And we just have a lot on our plate.
Well, that's great. Well, it's super exciting. And we have discussed for years, the possibilities of bringing especially broadband into the commercial district in terms of as an opportunity. Perhaps Keith, once the network is set up in Stafford, we can circle back and understand a little bit more about the economics of how much it costs to set up and establish, and what the ongoing operational components are as well as what some of the potential revenue streams could be.
One revenue stream that I would put at the top of my list if I was sitting on your council. The mobile carriers know that their customers have poor service. You live there, you know where all the dead spots are. So if you were to have a network like this deploy, I would highly encourage you to say to the carriers, hey, you don't have good service on the beach. You don't have good service in certain areas. We have this magnificent Wi-Fi network deployed, and they're starting to know who we are. And we can offer you data offload for your network, which allows them to have their network operate more efficiently. And you, the government in the city, would get to decide, of course, within reasonable ranges, what that cost would look like. And I'm here to tell you, the mobile carriers would jump all over it, because the only other way for them to address this is to build a tower that's about 300 and some odd thousand. By the time they're finished looking to put towers wherever there's a dead spot, it would be truly financially not feasible for them. But having access to the broadband network, that's key for them. They can offload their data. And just so you know, these networks, when we build them, if we wanted to, and there's no need to, and I'll explain that in a minute. If you wanted to, we can deliver 1 gigabit per second up and down. I will ask all of you when you go home this evening while it's fresh in your mind to do a speed test of your network and see what speeds you're getting uplink and downlink. The minimum speeds that we deliver to any broadband subscriber is 25 megabits per second uplink, 25 megabits per second downlink. If anyone attempts to try to sell you anything over 100 megabits per second up and down, I would not touch it. We do not encourage our customers to do it because it's not needed, and it's not needed from what we see on our network and from what the subscriber needs. If you need more than 100 megabits per second and you have kids, the kids are having a gaming party, okay? And having 10 or 20 kids in the house, and that's sufficient.
It's a red flag, that's for sure. That's great. Any other questions for Keith?
Can you guys hear me? I can't tell if my speakers are on.
We can hear you.
Oh, perfect. So Kevin, based on the map that you have here on the screen and I can't see how many green spots.
Let me go up.
What would be, not from a service or maintenance perspective, but simply installation?
I'm not understanding. How would it be installed?
Cost-wise, well, yes.
Cost-wise? Cost-wise, if we are putting these up and where it would end up, you're talking, if we are allowed to use the poles, and I believe the state legislators passed some legislation that's making it easier because electrical utilities were blocking. It depends, and I don't want to give you a figure in your head and it stick, but the typical installation is about $150. So if I were to look at this, let me just say right here, this pin, okay, we would put the 1 gig radio there and the pole and the battery backup and the solar panel. And that is if we were not able to put it on someone's home or any of the city's vertical assets. So if you were to say, okay, Keith, we want to do this, I would look to work with yourselves and the other stakeholders and identify what vertical assets does the city of Madison own. And what I mean by that, it could be a library, it could be a school, and I believe here on the green somewhere there's a church, a historical church. And even if you didn't have enough vertical assets, then what we would do is any of the homeowners that would want service, we would use their home as a point. And worst case scenario, we would put up a pole. However, in this downtown area here, and we've looked at it, I've gone underground, there are enough vertical assets that would allow us to put the equipment on a building or on one of your street lamps. And let me give you an example. If you were to go to Cisco, and this is just a comparison here, or Ruckus, and tell them you want an access point, it's going to cost you about $2,000 for the access point plus the licensing fee. That access point has limitations, such as some of them are limited to 30 to 50 subscribers each. The only limitation for subscribers that our equipment has is bandwidth. Let me explain that to you. If we have a radio, the 1 gig radio, for example, okay, that 1 gig radio is $1,200. One of what would be considered an access point for us, but we refer to it as a wireless unit, that's $900. So that just gives you some idea of the cost comparison and the vast differentiators and the capabilities between the two.
Great.
Thank you.
And it works in cold, so the cold is not going to bother it, and neither is the heat. We are deploying networks in Sierra Leone, Madagascar, Mauritius, and Ghana, and my hometown, Barbados. And up in Calgary, as you know, the temperatures are known to go negative 20 degrees and plus. So that is enough confirmation that there's no need to worry about the snow or the cold chill coming off the Long Island Sound.
Great. Well, Keith, I know you offered to show off the Northern Virginia facility, and we may take you up on that. However, I think probably most of us would probably be more interested in checking out the installation in Barbados. So I'm not sure how that offers.
Sign me up.
In June or July, I'll be going down. And you have to quarantine, but you have to quarantine in a hotel for a week. And if you look at, and it is torture to look out the window of the Crane Beach Hotel and look at that pink sand and know you can't touch it for 7 days.
It's tough.
Well, it could be tough, but I don't know. If they serve drinks at the hotel where I'm staying, and there's a balcony, I might still be in. Keith, thank you so much for your time. This is super interesting. I can't wait to learn more and see if there might be an opportunity for Madison to embrace something like this.
Thank you. I have one question before I leave, which would help me at least come back to you at some point with some pricing. This area with the white lining, is that a general area that you would prefer? And if not, my recommendation would be, as we tell all of our customers regardless, because there's this thing called Murphy's Law. So what we typically like to tell our customers is, let's do a proof of concept. Deploy relatively inexpensive, $10,000 or so. Let us see how the equipment works. It is one thing for me to sit here and tell you how beautiful and great the equipment is. It's another thing for you to actually experience using it. And you can do that relatively inexpensive.
Yeah, I think so, Keith. I think it is, definitely if you're talking about a proof of concept, especially, that is the commercial district. There are other commercial, locations throughout town. So, we'd have to probably, do some homework there. But in terms of a proof of concept, it wouldn't surprise me if that's what was chosen.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again. And Kevin, Kevin, who was unable to jump on, I don't know if he's here. Are you here, Kevin?
Well, Kevin, if you can hear us, thank you for attending. And if we don't see you back in our meeting, we'll see you in Barbados.
I see you're still not letting go Barbados.
No,
so what we will do is Kevin had prepared a proposal for the city some time ago.
I think he's listed as an attendee with his hand up. I don't know if Dave can get him off the attendees. Is that Kevin Niebergall? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's in our attendee list.
Okay.
Oh, looks like he's in.
Kevin, you're muted and blocked. Okay, he's gone. In any event, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. And we will take a look at the white drawn out area and have something prepared as a proof of concept. And once Walden 10 should be up next week, we'll let you know the weather's getting warm. Unfortunately, Virginia
Kevin's
Beach.
Here.
Okay. Virginia Beach is still 2 hours away, Ryan.
Okay. Oh, great. Well, thanks again, Keith. Thanks, Kevin. We will hopefully hear from you soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Moving on, just wanted to at least maintain on the agenda some of the items that we've been talking about over the last several months, including the shared wastewater economic study update, the Light Up Madison budget, and wanted to touch upon a conversation we had during our last meeting regarding the commission support of the town budget. So for the first two items, I don't know, Dave or Justin, are those in the budgetary conversations, those two items, or where do those sit?
I was looking at Justin sorry, Ryan, I was checking the attendee list just now. What were the two budget items you were asking about?
Shared wastewater economic impact study and the Light Up Madison budget.
The Light Up Madison is in the budget. The shared wastewater is not. It's being discussed potentially as either a special appropriation or even it's also being discussed as a potential for some of these rescue funds.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, that's good to hear that it's stayed in the budget for Light Up Madison. So,
And I did get a call actually from, I mentioned this to you, Ryan, from a woman that's organizing Night in Hand. And they reached out to the vendor that assisted us with the downtown lighting because they want to use them for Night in Hand. So I thought that was nice.
great. Excellent. So I just wanted to share some feedback, and I had shared with Jonathan since Jonathan had some specific questions last time in regards to any historical context in this commission supporting the overall town budget. And so Jonathan, correct me when I'm wrong here in my summary, but did hear back from Peggy and from Lauren Rhines in the first select woman's office. First of all, they didn't really seem to think that there was any reason why we couldn't support the budget. There was a little caution provided in regards to kind of broadly supporting the overall town budget, and that it might be more appropriate if there were certain elements of the budget that we were supportive of, especially those that, of course, impact any kind of economic development in town. So, Jonathan, I'm summarizing information that I got about a month ago. So, I don't know.
Yeah, you're spot on. I think the sense was that there was no reason why we couldn't, but the request, I think, from Peggy was that we try and make it as narrow as possible so as to be meaningful, meaning, focusing on economic development issues.
Yeah.
So I think it's, up to us if down the road we want to do something. I think as you brought up last time, Ryan, probably the more meaningful thing in the long run is just supporting, when it comes to the school facilities thing, those things that are, large ticket items that have significant demographic appeal. That's probably a better time to shoot those bullets than something that really is not likely to draw, not increase our vibrancy terribly much, unless we felt really strongly about it from one way, that there was a single item in a budget that we really wanted to make sure didn't get removed, or a couple that were really important. That was the take home that I got. And I think that's a pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I think that's right. Does anyone have any questions or additional comments on that topic? Okay. But that's good. I think that's good background to have, especially as we move into some of these other kind of items that are going to be coming up in the future here. Board reports. So Bruce, any updates from the Board of Selectmen? I know you guys have been busy.
We have not so much on economic development issues. A lot of housekeeping right now. The thing burning brightest is probably our floodplain ordinance. We went to the Coastal Resiliency Commission and asked them to look at and recommend updates to our floodplain ordinance. They have done that. They did that work over a period of months. And we are rather blessed in that we have Joe McDougall, who is one of the thought leaders in the state on resiliency. So we have some really good resident experts in town here. I think where we're at is we have the sort of best practice recommendation running headlong into the financial impact for the affected homes, and maybe I should say potential financial impact. So I think we're trying to wade through that and understand better. The CRC updated their recommendations, took into consideration some of the public feedback, and we'll be taking that update to at least one more public hearing. And I think we need to work hard to describe the process. The document is very technical, and so it can be hard to read. And I think everybody goes straight to imagining all the horribles that can happen financially. So we need, I think, to put a little bit more definition around that and see, how much of that still exists from a practical perspective. So There are a lot of people paying attention to it. I think Dave, we're talking about 150 homes that are,
The homes that would be subject to an additional foot requirement over the minimum that FEMA requires. And then there's more homes than that are actually in the flood zone itself.
right. And of course, that's a moving target anyways, right?
Correct. Yeah, the flood zones get remapped from time to time, and so it is a moving target.
Great. Excellent. I see, well, we had John Picard on for I think your first meeting. John, are you still there? You're there. You're muted. Oh, I'm gonna take you off mute there.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm still here.
How are you, John?
I'm good, Ryan. How are you?
Coming.
Yeah, sorry I was late, but
That's okay. Justin's been hogging your dual liaisonship all this time, keeping it all to himself selfishly.
Justin's a good man. I'm not worried. I know he's got it covered.
Yeah, he does.
Well, John sends me his half of our pay, so it's, you know,
Right.
it's,
Yeah. Well, with a
Send it
small
to him every week without fail.
I wanted to just check in to see if either of you have a Board of Finance liaison report or anything you want to share.
I'll defer to Justin. I'm here to listen.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have any questions, or if you already know it. I could just kind of share where the budget stands, because we're kind of in the final stretch of heading towards the final public hearing and then the referendum. So anyone, John or even Bruce, can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking at the budget presentation from the last public hearing. So the total town operating budget is up a little over 4%. The Board of Education is up a little over over 1%. I think about 1.2. So a combined, the expenses themselves are up for the town about 2.75 in that range. So what was left, that those budgets will go before a public hearing, and then obviously the town referendum vote in early May. And then the mill rate will be set. And that's the one thing that's been bouncing around, because the mill rate does not necessarily equal the increase in expenses exactly, because there is some revenue. The budget's only on the expense side, but the mill rate also takes into account some of the revenue that comes into the town. And also for the last, really, it's a trend, but the amount changes each year. But there's also our undesignated fund balance, if you're all familiar, that's essentially our reserve account that we also can pull from to help essentially buy down the mill rate increase. So I think, and this is where John, correct me if my recollection is wrong, I think we're targeting or hoping for a mill rate increase somewhere in the 1.7 to up to possibly as high as 2%, you know, based on the fund.
More
that's, yeah, hopefully keeping it under 2 for sure. And we can use some of that undesignated fund balance to do that. So I'll just stop there. That's the basic recap, and certainly answer any questions on that or anything else you guys have for the Board of Finance, if I can.
Thanks, Justin. Dave, you've also been pretty busy with planning and zoning. Is there anything?
Well, yeah, so the most high-profile project is the Ledges project. That project's actually been delayed a little bit due to some wetlands, I don't want to say issues, but there was a wetland that wasn't delineated on the original application. That information is now known. So the way the state statutes work is the Town Planning and Zoning Commission cannot take action until the Inland Wetlands Agency does. And so the application was continued at Inland Wetlands earlier this month. So that'll be heard again in May. And so I believe the applicant is actually going to request to table the hearing from next week until May as well. So I'll probably have an update for you next week on that application. Jerry Davis did submit his applications. He got approval through wetlands for his 30-unit apartment building, and he's on the agenda for next week to seek approval through the Planning and Zoning Commission. So this board already generated a letter of support, which is in the file for that project. And so those are the two major ones. The other one that's economic development related is Bill Plunkett applied to the Planning and Zoning Commission to basically extend the outdoor dining in the under the tent in the area adjacent to Moxie. The original application was for longer duration, but he revised it to just ask for this next year, this next season. And so he's going to be doing that next season with I guess a more of a barbecue focus for the actual dining, and then trying a crack at doing a few outdoor movies and a little bit of music that he didn't really get to do fully last year. And so the commission actually approved it really under the governor's executive order the state legislature that basically extended outdoor dining privileges for another year, and then gave me the administrative authority to kind of oversee it. So that went through the Planning and Zoning Commission successfully. And those are probably the major applications that we're dealing with right now.
All right, thanks, Dave. Is there any old business anyone has? I have one item on new business that I was excited to share. I got a call yesterday that the Chamber of Commerce has decided that the Economic Development Commission would be receiving their Member of the Year award due to our work on the Light Up Madison initiative during the wintertime. So pretty excited about that. We'll be getting the award. For those that can attend, the dinner I think is on the 22nd of June. I think right around that time. I'll send out some information if you're interested. They're graciously giving us 2 tickets to attend, so we can share that benefit across all those that are interested in attending. But it probably would be fun. It's going to be an outdoor event, I think at Woodwinds in Branford. But definitely a testament to our kind of thoughtful and efficient and fast planning to try and pull off getting that done. So I think it's pretty exciting to see people recognize the work that we get to do. So pretty exciting. Any other new business?
I have a question that may be new business ultimately. Does anybody know so the whole dog leash on trails, is that a land conservation trust issue? Is that a town statute issue? Who decides that? Anybody know?
No.
There is I'm not sure if the issue is it like a issue on social media? I haven't seen anything about it.
No. It's just so there are, especially during the pandemic, all of our trails have been populated with, somewhere between 1 and 10 times the normal amount of foot traffic. And mixed in with that are dog owners who always religiously leash their dogs. And then there are people who very cautiously let their dogs off leash, which by all accounts is only allowable in certain places at certain times. For example, the Surf Club has out of season, you can let your dog off lead at the boat entryway. So you can let your dog run there out of season. But so there's somebody who decides where and when you can have your dog off lead. One of the things is both groups, I think, are totally within their right to want to enjoy the trails, or all 3 groups, depending on how you define it. So I was thinking that would be something we could potentially figure out a way to make it a selling point in Madison. If we had, for example, open trail hours, or where you could take your dog off lead, assuming they met certain criteria, and then much more restrictive hours where they couldn't. I don't know. I was just kind of toying with the idea.
Well, it's definitely something that we can look into, Jonathan, and we will get the answer in terms of who oversees that. So I'll look into it, and then I'll get you the answer. Jonathan always seems to give me homework every meeting.
Was that my intention? I thought somebody might know. Like, I didn't know if it was a conservation.
I know there's a town ordinance governing, I think, some of that. I just don't know the specific language. I'd have to look at it. And then perhaps the Beach and Rec Commission has the ability to set certain rules for like the Surf Club.
I mean, there certainly are leash laws in town, right? Like, so public property, but the Land Conservation Trust is an interesting mix, right? They technically own the property, right? So
I want
All
to
right,
just,
we'll
Ryan,
just-
could I
go
take
ahead,
one
Dave.
tangent related to this? You had mentioned you contacted Laura Brown from Yukon Extension. And so I actually had contacted her on a different matter. So she's, again, with Yukon Extension, and she has actually a very specific trails focus as part of her economic development role, which is something, we've talked about a little bit before, how the town of Madison really has a fairly unique asset in terms of we have over 50 miles of, running hiking trails and another 18 miles of mountain bike trails. And I asked her to, connect with me on ideas that would help us kind of position that trail access as a little bit more of an economic development tool. So I'm hoping to connect with her about that and generate some ideas about how we can kind of further augment. I mean, I'm thinking to the extent of if they would help us, top 5 trail towns in Connecticut, and Madison happened to be one of those top 5 trail towns, and we could do a little bit of a marketing effort around it. I think it could be something that we could get a little bit of attraction with. So I like the idea.
What if some of those trails were, free range dog trails too, right? Like
Right.
all of a sudden we're attracting dog owners from all across the state. Just
So
saying.
hopefully I'll have something to talk about a little bit more next meeting about that if I'm able to connect with Laura.
Great. All right, any other new business?
Hey Ryan, this is Eric. Sorry again that I was late. I was couldn't get the mute button off when Justin was talking or when he was done. He sent out a really great adjustment to our last conversation last month about mill rate and how much for my house it is to it's going to change. And I don't know, does the public get that same information? Because I thought that was great information that we should make sure that those who watch have that. Justin, do you have a way to share that with everyone, or is that how do we handle that?
I can certainly share it with this group if you'd like. It's kind of simple math. I don't know. There's no reason why it couldn't be a part of the presentation in terms of a public hearing. I don't know that it is, to be honest, but there's certainly, I don't know any reason why that kind of illustration couldn't be included in the budget process public hearing. The only, I guess maybe one reason, honestly, is that the budget, as I said earlier tonight, the budget referendum is only that, just the budget. That's only the expense side. The mill rate is then determined after the budget has been approved or not, because there are other variables that go into it. So I guess it would be slightly hypothetical. I mean, obviously fairly close, but there are other variables that go into it. As we were talking, that we can use undesignated fund balance and other means to try to lower the mill rate if we feel that's warranted. But I guess it could be done. So I'll have to talk to Bruce or John and others. How do we best present it, in the most accurate way? But there is a distinction between the mill rate increase. It's not. It doesn't directly correlate to the budget increase. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
maybe,
totally.
maybe Eric, we can make a polite request to the Board of Finance that they somehow share that formula out, that maybe the press will pick up in the kind of the conversation about the budget prior to a referendum.
Great idea. Thanks.
And I could certainly talk to Gene about it, who kind of prepares that presentation with Stacy, and certainly I can mention that to them, see how they could work it in, accurately.
Yeah. Great.
Great.
Good
Great,
suggestion. Thank you. Excellent. Well, if there's nothing else, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Thanks, Ann. Second? All right, everyone. Have